Have you ever heard of someone who seemed perfectly fine, full of life, smiling, maybe even making plans for the weekend, only to suddenly pass away without any warning? It's a heartbreaking shock that leaves families and friends reeling, trying to make sense of what just happened. What's even more devastating is realizing that in many of these cases, the warning signs were there all along. They just went unnoticed, misinterpreted, or worse, completely ignored. We often tell ourselves that certain symptoms are just a natural part of getting older, feeling a little tired, getting winded more easily, or experiencing the occasional ache or pain. But sometimes those seemingly minor issues are actually your body waving a red flag, signaling that something far more serious is going on beneath the surface. Sudden death, especially in older adults, is rarely as sudden as it seems. The human body is incredibly intelligent. It often tries to warn us when something's wrong, but we have to be willing to listen. Too many people dismiss unusual symptoms thinking, it's probably nothing, or I'll get it checked out later. But later sometimes never comes. That's why in this video we're going to walk you through 7 critical warning signs that could indicate a life-threatening condition before it's too late. These aren't just random health tips. These are signs that could save your life or the life of someone you deeply care about. Some of the symptoms we'll talk about might appear subtle, or even feel harmless at first, like feeling unusually tired or experiencing a little swelling in your legs. But behind those symptoms could be serious conditions like congestive heart failure, pulmonary embolisms, strokes, or fatal cardiac events. The truth is, catching these warning signs early and taking them seriously could mean the difference between life and death. And that's not an exaggeration. So, I urge you, stay with me until the very end of this video. Don't skip ahead, don't click away, because by understanding what these signs are, how they show up, and why they matter, you'll be better equipped to protect yourself and your loved ones. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you never miss an important health video like this. Your support helps us continue sharing information that could truly save lives. Now, let's dive into the 7 warning signs you should never ignore. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you enjoy this video, please type 1 in the comments. If you don't like it, type 0 in the comments to let me know so I can make better videos for you. Now let's get started. Number 1. Unexplained shortness of breath. Imagine this. You're walking up a set of stairs, something you've done countless times before without any issue, but this time something feels different. You're suddenly winded. Your chest feels tight, and before you know it, you have to pause midway to catch your breath. At first, you might chalk it up to aging. Maybe you've been a little less active than usual, or perhaps you're simply out of shape. However, many people don't realize that unexplained shortness of breath could be a red flag pointing to something much more serious, like an issue with your heart or lungs. The reality is, when the heart isn't pumping blood as efficiently as it should, it can cause fluid to build up in the lungs, making it much harder to breathe. This condition is known as congestive heart failure, and it can develop gradually or appear unexpectedly. The tricky part is, the symptoms often seem subtle at first, and by the time they become more pronounced, it may be too late. People sometimes dismiss shortness of breath as just another part of aging, but ignoring it could have dire consequences. In addition to heart failure, shortness of breath can also be a sign of a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot that travels to the lungs. Pulmonary embolisms can occur without any prior warning, and they can be fatal if not treated quickly. This type of clot is often seen in individuals who have been immobile for extended periods, such as those recovering from surgery or people who spend long hours sitting in one position, like during long flights or road trips. Let me tell you about Alan, a 72-year-old retired engineer. Alan had always been active. He enjoyed taking regular walks in the park and generally staying physically fit. But one day, something strange happened. Even a short walk around his neighborhood left him gasping for air, feeling like he couldn't catch his breath. He brushed it off as a sign that he wasn't as active as he used to be. His wife, however, noticed how much he was struggling and urged him to see a doctor. Alan, being stubborn and thinking it was just part of getting older, ignored her advice and decided not to make an appointment. 5 days later, Alan collapsed at home. By the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. The cause of his death was a massive heart attack, one that could have been prevented had he listened to the warning signs his body was trying to send. His case serves as a tragic reminder that ignoring symptoms, no matter how mild they may seem, can have life-altering consequences. Here's what you need to know. If you suddenly find yourself out of breath after light physical activity, feel winded while lying down, or wake up in the middle of the night gasping for air, do not ignore it. These are all potential signs of a serious heart or lung problem. The key is catching these signs early. When it comes to heart or lung health, early intervention can be the difference between life and death. A doctor can help assess what's really going on, and in many cases, prompt treatment can prevent a catastrophic event. The bottom line is this: if your breathing changes suddenly for no obvious reason, especially if it happens frequently or while doing something simple like walking or lying down, take it seriously. It's all too easy to dismiss these symptoms, but doing so could have devastating effects. Your body is trying to tell you something important. Pay attention and get checked out before it's too late. The earlier you act, the better your chances of staying healthy and avoiding a life-threatening event. Number 2. Frequent chest discomfort, not just pain. Imagine you're sitting down to watch your favorite TV show when suddenly, without warning, you feel a strange tightness in your chest. It's not sharp, it's not debilitating, but it's an uncomfortable pressure, almost as though something heavy is pressing down on your chest. You shift in your seat, take a deep breath, and after a few minutes the sensation fades. You think to yourself, well, that was odd. But since the discomfort wasn't intense or unbearable, you brush it off. However, that seemingly minor moment could be your body's way of signaling something much more serious beneath the surface. Most people assume that a heart attack only announces itself with excruciating, crushing chest pain. The dramatic scenes we see in movies and TV shows often leave us thinking that heart issues are always obvious. But the truth is, heart problems can present themselves in much subtler ways. A dull ache, mild burning, or a constant feeling of tightness in the chest, especially if it comes and goes, can be early signs of an underlying heart issue. These warning signs can appear days, weeks, or even months before a major cardiac event. Unfortunately, because they aren't as dramatic or sudden as the heart attack scenes we're familiar with, many people dismiss these symptoms, assuming they're nothing to worry about until it's too late. Let me tell you the story of George, a 75-year-old retired mechanic. George had always considered himself in pretty good shape. He worked on cars for years, kept active, and never really had health issues. But on occasion he would experience what he described as a mild pressure in his chest. It wasn't painful, but it was noticeable, especially when he'd exert himself, like climbing the stairs or lifting heavy boxes. The sensation would last only a few moments and then it would go away. George often thought it was just due to his aging body and didn't think much of it. He didn't want to be a bother to his family or his doctor, so he brushed it off. One evening, after finishing up some yard work, the tightness returned, but this time it didn't fade. It grew more intense, spreading down his arm, and he began to sweat profusely. By the time his wife called an ambulance, George collapsed right there on the porch. Sadly, he passed away before help could arrive. The cause of death? A massive heart attack. Looking back, George's family realized that those small, seemingly inconsequential chest sensations were in fact the early warning signs of heart trouble, signs that could have potentially saved his life if they had been taken seriously. Here's what you need to remember. If you experience unexplained pressure, tightness, or discomfort in your chest, especially when engaging in physical activity or feeling stressed, don't brush it off. It could be your heart trying to tell you that something's wrong. Some people describe it as indigestion, others as a feeling of fullness or heaviness in the chest. No matter how you describe it, or how mild it may seem, never ignore it. The earlier you address heart issues, the more likely you are to prevent a catastrophic event like a heart attack. Catching these subtle signs early can make all the difference in saving your life or the life of a loved one. Number 3. Sudden weakness or dizziness. Imagine this: you wake up feeling perfectly fine, go through your usual morning routine, and then out of nowhere a wave of dizziness hits you. The room seems to tilt, your legs feel shaky, and you might even have to grab onto a nearby counter or chair to keep yourself steady. For a moment you feel completely unbalanced, but then, just as quickly as it came, the sensation fades. You take a deep breath, think it's probably nothing, and carry on with your day. After all, it only lasted a few seconds, right? It's probably just exhaustion, or maybe you're dehydrated. However, this seemingly fleeting moment of dizziness could actually be your body trying to warn you of something far more serious. Sudden weakness or dizziness is not always something trivial, like fatigue or dehydration. In fact, these symptoms could be an early sign of something life-threatening, like a stroke. One of the most commonly overlooked signs of a stroke is brief dizziness, especially when it's accompanied by sudden weakness in the arms or legs. This type of dizziness could indicate a transient ischemic attack, TIA, often referred to as a mini-stroke. A TIA happens when there is a temporary disruption in blood flow to the brain, and while the symptoms may disappear within minutes, they should never be ignored. Just because the dizziness fades quickly doesn't mean the danger has passed. In fact, a TIA is a serious warning sign that you're at risk for a full-blown stroke in the near future. Take the story of Victor, a 71-year-old retired high school teacher. One warm afternoon, Victor was out in his garden, enjoying the sunshine and tending to his plants, when he suddenly felt an overwhelming weakness in his left arm. At the same time, a wave of dizziness hit him, causing him to stagger and sit down on the ground. The dizziness was brief, lasting no more than a minute, and when he stood up, he felt better. Thinking he was just a little tired from the physical activity, he shrugged it off and continued with his day. Later that evening, he casually mentioned the incident to his wife, but neither of them thought much of it. He even thought that maybe it was just dehydration from the heat. However, 2 days later, while sitting at home watching TV, Victor suddenly lost control of his left side. His speech became slurred, and he couldn't move his arm or leg. His wife called 911 immediately, and by the time the paramedics arrived, Victor had suffered a massive stroke. Tragically, he was left partially paralyzed, and his doctors later confirmed that the earlier dizziness and weakness were signs of a transient ischemic attack, TIA, a major red flag that a full stroke was imminent. If only he had sought medical attention earlier, his stroke might have been prevented, or at least its severity could have been minimized. Another common cause of sudden dizziness and weakness is atrial fibrillation, a condition in which the heart beats irregularly. When the heart beats erratically, it struggles to pump blood efficiently throughout the body, which can cause temporary drops in blood pressure. This may leave you feeling faint, lightheaded, or unsteady on your feet. Atrial fibrillation, while manageable with medication and treatment, can lead to life-threatening complications such as blood clots, which can result in stroke or even sudden cardiac arrest if left untreated. So, what should you do if you experience these symptoms? The key is not to ignore them. If you suddenly feel lightheaded, weak, or dizzy, especially if it lasts longer than a few seconds, take it seriously. If your arms or legs feel unusually heavy or weak, or if you feel unsteady while walking, it could be an indication of something much more serious, like a stroke or heart condition. Early intervention is crucial. Don't wait for the symptoms to pass before taking action. Many people hesitate to seek medical help because they don't want to seem like they're overreacting. But when it comes to your health, it's always better to be safe than sorry. Ignoring sudden dizziness or weakness can have devastating consequences. A TIA, stroke, or irregular heartbeat could be hiding behind these symptoms, and taking immediate action could save your life. Whether it's you or someone you know who's experiencing these warning signs, don't just brush them off. Get checked out by a doctor as soon as possible. It could be the difference between life and death. Number 4. Swelling in the legs or abdomen. Imagine this. After a long day, you sit down to take a break and remove your shoes or socks. As you do, you notice something unusual. Deep indentations left on your skin. Or perhaps your shoes, which were comfortable just a few days ago, now feel tight and uncomfortable. At first, you might brush it off as a result of standing too long, eating salty foods, or even as just another part of getting older. After all, a little swelling here and there seems harmless, right? But what if I told you that persistent or sudden swelling, especially when it worsens, could be an early warning sign of something much more serious, like a problem with your heart, kidneys, or liver? When your heart isn't pumping blood efficiently, it can cause fluid to build up in the lower parts of your body, particularly in your legs, feet, or abdomen. This condition is known as edema, and it is often a signal of worsening heart failure. In the early stages, the swelling might not cause any pain, but it's a crucial red flag that something isn't quite right. The body's inability to manage fluid properly is a sign that the heart isn't functioning at full capacity. The swelling might start out mild, but if it goes unnoticed, it can quickly escalate into more severe health complications. But heart failure isn't the only thing that can cause swelling. If you experience swelling in the abdomen, this could be a sign of liver disease, specifically a condition called ascites, where fluid accumulates in the abdomen due to liver dysfunction. This kind of swelling often goes unnoticed until it becomes more pronounced, leading to discomfort and other severe health issues. Take the case of Martin, a 75-year-old retired truck driver who had spent most of his life on the road. Martin was always independent and rarely went to the doctor, believing that he could tough it out. Over the course of several weeks, he began to notice some subtle changes. His ankles, which used to be slender, started to look puffy, but he dismissed it as a natural part of aging. Soon, however, his fatigue levels increased. He found himself more tired than usual, even after a good night's sleep. Martin thought it was just the stresses of getting older, but things took a turn when he noticed his belt was suddenly much tighter and his stomach felt bloated and distended. At first he tried to ignore it, but his concerned daughter urged him to visit the doctor. After a series of tests, the diagnosis was clear. Martin was in the early stages of congestive heart failure. The swelling in his legs and abdomen was his body's way of trying to warn him that his heart wasn't pumping blood effectively. Unfortunately, because he had ignored the symptoms for so long, the condition had already progressed to a critical stage. So, how can you tell when swelling is more than just a minor inconvenience? It's all about paying attention to the timing and progression of the swelling. If you notice that your legs, feet, or abdomen are visibly swollen and the swelling doesn't seem to go away, or if it even worsens as the day progresses, this could be a sign that your heart, kidneys, or liver aren't working properly. A telltale sign is if you press on the swollen area and it leaves an indentation that doesn't return to normal quickly. This is called pitting edema, and it's a sign that fluid is accumulating under the skin. Additionally, if the swelling is accompanied by other symptoms like shortness of breath, a sudden increase in weight, or difficulty breathing, it's crucial to seek medical attention immediately. These could be signs of severe heart failure, kidney disease, or other life-threatening conditions. Ignoring this swelling could allow a potentially manageable condition to progress into something far more dangerous. The takeaway? Don't ignore swelling, especially when it appears suddenly or persists over time. It's easy to chalk it up to aging, standing for long periods, or simple water retention. But the reality is that swelling is often your body's early warning system. Recognizing it for what it is and taking action can save your life, or at the very least, allow for earlier intervention and treatment. Number 5. Unusual fatigue that appears suddenly. Imagine waking up after a full night's sleep thinking that you're going to feel rested and recharged, ready to tackle the day ahead. But instead you feel completely drained, as if you've just run a marathon in your sleep. You try to push through the day, hoping that a cup of coffee will help. But everything feels like a monumental effort. Simple tasks like getting dressed, preparing breakfast, or even making a phone call seem exhausting. You tell yourself, it's just part of getting older, I must be stressed. But deep down, something doesn't feel right. Unusual fatigue, especially when it strikes suddenly and without an obvious cause, can be one of the most important warning signs that something is seriously wrong with your heart. When the heart struggles to pump blood effectively, it redirects energy to the vital organs in the body, which can leave you feeling completely wiped out. This extreme fatigue often comes on gradually, but in some cases, it can present weeks or even days before a major cardiovascular event like a heart attack. The fatigue isn't just the kind of tiredness you feel after a long day. It lingers, and it feels unlike anything you've experienced before. Take Elaine, a 69-year-old retired teacher who had always been a vibrant and energetic person. She loved reading, volunteering at the local library, and hosting book clubs for her friends. However, over the course of several months, Elaine began noticing that something was off. Activities that once seemed easy were now taking a toll. She could barely make it through a chapter of her favorite book without feeling winded, and even a short walk to the corner store would leave her feeling completely exhausted. At first, she brushed it off, attributing her tiredness to stress and the natural process of aging. After all, she was busy, and it wasn't unusual to feel worn out now and then. But one Saturday morning, while folding laundry, Elaine suddenly felt a crushing pressure in her chest. Her energy completely drained in an instant, and she collapsed onto the floor. Paramedics arrived shortly after and confirmed that she had suffered a heart attack. What she had thought was simply the result of too much stress or getting older was, in fact, her body's way of signaling that her heart was in trouble. The fatigue she had been experiencing for weeks wasn't normal tiredness, it was a cry for help. So, what does heart-related fatigue feel like, and how can you tell the difference between typical exhaustion and something more dangerous? Heart-related fatigue tends to feel overwhelming and persistent. It's the kind of exhaustion that doesn't go away with rest or sleep. It makes even the simplest tasks feel incredibly difficult. Many people who experience this kind of fatigue also report a sudden loss of stamina. It feels like their body just won't cooperate with them the way it used to. You might also notice that you need more naps or breaks throughout the day, and activities that were once routine seem to leave you drained for hours. If you've noticed a sudden and unexplained drop in your energy levels, especially if you feel weaker than usual or experience a constant lingering tiredness, it's important not to ignore it. Fatigue related to heart problems can be one of the earliest warning signs of a serious cardiovascular issue, and it's something that should never be brushed off. While it's easy to dismiss tiredness as a side effect of a busy life or getting older, extreme fatigue can often be the body's way of warning you that something is wrong. In Elaine's case, had she recognized her fatigue as a symptom of heart trouble earlier, she might have been able to seek medical attention before things took a dangerous turn. Instead, she had to face a life-altering event that could have been prevented. So the next time you find yourself inexplicably exhausted or unable to keep up with your usual routine, don't ignore it. Your body could be trying to tell you something important. Recognizing this sign early could make all the difference in preventing a much more serious health crisis down the line. If you're feeling this type of fatigue, it's time to pay attention and talk to your doctor. Don't wait for the situation to worsen. Number 6. Irregular or racing heartbeat. Imagine sitting comfortably in your favorite chair, perhaps reading a book or watching TV, when suddenly you feel your heart start racing unexpectedly. It might feel like it's fluttering, skipping beats, or pounding harder than usual, even though you're simply sitting still, doing nothing that would normally cause your heart rate to increase. Perhaps it only lasts for a few seconds and then fades, so you brush it off as stress. Too much caffeine or just an off moment. But what if I told you that an irregular or racing heartbeat, especially if it happens frequently or without any apparent reason, could be a silent signal from your body about something much more serious? Your heart is much like the engine of a car. If it starts misfiring, something is wrong under the hood. One of the most common causes of an irregular heartbeat is atrial fibrillation, a condition where the heart beats in an erratic, disorganized manner. This isn't just a minor inconvenience. It's a serious condition that significantly increases the risk of life-threatening issues like stroke, heart failure, and sudden cardiac arrest. When the heart's rhythm is off, blood doesn't flow properly, and it can pool in the chambers of the heart, leading to dangerous blood clots that might travel to the brain or lungs. These clots can result in strokes or even fatal events. Consider Dennis, a 74-year-old retired coach who loved watching sports and enjoying his leisure time. One evening, while relaxing at home and watching a baseball game, Dennis suddenly felt his heart flutter unexpectedly. The sensation only lasted a few seconds, and since it didn't seem to cause him any pain, he didn't think much of it. Over the next few weeks, however, the sensation returned, sometimes while he was sitting quietly, other times while he was out walking. Finally, during a routine checkup with his cardiologist, the irregular heartbeat was caught on an EKG. After further tests, Dennis was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation. Thankfully, his doctor caught it early, and Dennis narrowly avoided what could have been a devastating stroke. If he had waited any longer, the outcome could have been much more severe. So, how can you tell if your heart is trying to warn you? Pay attention to irregular beats, fluttering sensations, or episodes where your heart speeds up suddenly without any physical exertion. If you ever feel dizzy, lightheaded, or short of breath when this happens, don't dismiss it as nothing serious. These could be signs that your heart isn't pumping blood as effectively as it should be, and the situation could escalate quickly into an emergency. Even if the symptoms seem mild or pass quickly, getting checked by a doctor is crucial. Think of it like ignoring a warning light on your car's dashboard. It might seem like no big deal at first, but it could be signaling a serious problem down the road. If you've experienced these symptoms, it's time to talk to your doctor and take action before things worsen. Number 7. Persistent nausea or digestive issues that don't go away. Picture this. You've always had a strong stomach, rarely bothered by what you eat, and meals have never been a cause for concern. But recently, something has changed. After eating, you feel uncomfortably full, bloated, and more often than not, queasy. You might even experience a nagging sensation in your upper abdomen that won't seem to go away. You might chalk it up to indigestion, stress, or something you ate that didn't sit well. But what if that mild discomfort that keeps coming back isn't just a passing stomach bug or acid reflux? What if it's a signal from your body that something more serious is happening inside? Persistent nausea, bloating, loss of appetite, and other digestive troubles, especially if they come on suddenly or linger over time, could point to serious underlying health conditions such as heart disease, liver issues, or even certain types of cancer. These symptoms should never be dismissed, as they might be early signs of a condition that requires immediate medical attention. Let me tell you about Janet, a 68-year-old retired librarian who had always been in great health. For weeks, she noticed she was losing her appetite and frequently felt nauseous after meals. At first, she assumed it was stress from helping care for her grandkids, or maybe just a mild stomach bug. But when she began losing weight without trying and started feeling unusually full after eating only a small amount, her daughter urged her to see a doctor. After a series of tests, Janet was diagnosed with early-stage pancreatic cancer, a diagnosis that completely shocked her, but was thankfully treatable because they had caught it early. Digestive issues like nausea are often easy to dismiss, especially if you're otherwise healthy. But when these symptoms persist, especially when accompanied by other signs like fatigue, unexplained weight loss, or changes in appetite, they could be your body's way of signaling that something more serious is happening beneath the surface. The key is to never normalize discomfort or wait until the symptoms become unbearable. If your stomach, or your body in general, keeps telling you that something's wrong, it's time to listen. If you've been experiencing persistent nausea or other digestive issues that don't seem to go away, it's important to get it checked out. You know your body better than anyone, and paying attention to these changes can be a life-saving decision. Early detection is often the key to successful treatment, so don't wait for symptoms to worsen before you seek help. So many of us grow up hearing the mantra to tough it out, to push through discomfort, and to keep going no matter what. We've all been taught to ignore those small aches, pains, and unsettling feelings as just part of life. But when it comes to your health, especially your heart and other vital organs, those subtle signals your body sends are not mere inconveniences, they're warnings. The stories of Carol, Richard, Martin, Elaine, and Dennis illustrate the reality of how easy it is to overlook symptoms that, at first, seem minor, but can actually point to life-threatening conditions. Whether it's persistent shortness of breath, unexpected weight loss, sudden chest pain, unexplained swelling, unusual fatigue, or a racing heart, these signs are your body trying to get your attention. They're not random. They're your body's way of saying something isn't right. You don't need to be a doctor to recognize when something feels off. All you need is the willingness to listen to your body and trust the signals it's giving you. Early detection isn't just a proactive step, it's the key to preventing something more serious from happening. Ignoring these warning signs could mean the difference between a manageable condition and a life-threatening event that could have been avoided. So, if you or someone you love has been experiencing any of these symptoms, don't wait. Don't assume it'll just pass or that it's nothing serious. Talk to your doctor, get the tests, and ask the tough questions. Your health, your life, and your peace of mind are worth it. Recognizing and acting on these signs now could be the best decision you'll ever make. Don't wait until it's too late, because in matters of health, early intervention matters.